Sick and wounded Palestinians can now leave Gaza for medical treatment in Egypt following the reopening of the Rafah border crossing. So far, 37 people have passed through the crossing, which had been closed since Israeli forces took control of it last May. The World Health Organization says 14,000 people, including 5,000 children, need urgent access to medical treatment. International news organisations aren't allowed independent access to Gaza. So Joanne Wood has sent this report from Jerusalem.
At Gaza's Nasser hospital, some of the youngest victims of the conflict arrive. For months, these children have needed medical aid. Soon, they will finally receive it. The feeling I'll get when I see that my daughter has recovered her sight, says Ahmed, I'll be the happiest person in the world. These children are on their way to the Rafah crossing, Gaza's opening with Egypt. It was closed for almost a year, but now is finally opening as part of the fragile, but so far successful ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. It's seen a pause in the fighting and allowed reunions like this. Ofer Calderon, held in captivity since October the 7th, back with his family. In return, hundreds of Palestinians, some serving long sentences, others never charged with a crime, released from Israeli jails. This is part one of a three-part ceasefire deal. The next stage, which it's hoped will bring a permanent end to the fighting, will be more difficult to negotiate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on his way to Washington to meet President Trump. It's expected he will set out Israel's position for the coming talks, as well as the wider region.
A victory over Hamas, achieving the release of all our hostages, and dealing with the Iranian terror axis and all its components.
As the children and their carers approach the border, they know their wait for help should soon be over. But this is just the start.
We have to speed up the pace. What we need is medical corridors now outside Gaza to ensure that those 12 to 14,000 patients who are in need for the treatment they need and deserve, that they get out.
As it stands, there is no public plan for when the thousands who still need medical treatment will be able to get out of Gaza. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
And Joe has more on talks for phase 2 of the ceasefire negotiations.
Phase 1 was a difficult negotiation, to say the least. It took the original proposal that Joe Biden put forward, didn't actually get picked up and followed through until President Trump was almost in office, and they were painstaking negotiations. And what they're trying to achieve with phase 2, which is a permanent end to the conflict, as well as the returning of all of the male hostages, the soldiers, I think that is going to be even more difficult. But both sides have said they want to come to some sort of deal. But I think it's easy to say you want to do that. To actually get them to agree on the same deal and have it in place is going to be much more difficult.
Let's look at this airstrike on a car in Gaza, Joe. What's the IDF's justification for it?
So the IDF say that they did carry out an airstrike on a vehicle that was driving north on the coastal road in Gaza. We've had it also confirmed by a local hospital that that happened and that it was an airstrike, and that there were 4 people injured. One of them, a child, was critically injured and had to be resuscitated. The IDF have said that that car was driving on a road which, according to the deal of the ceasefire deal, no cars should be on because it avoids inspection. So they have admitted they carried it out, but they've said it was because it was a violation of the ceasefire deal. It's worth pointing out that these sort of things have happened on occasion, and yet the ceasefire has continued.
And meanwhile, in the north of the West Bank, Israel's forces have expanded an operation there.
Yeah, so this is an operation called Iron Wall. This has been going on for just under a couple of weeks now, focusing on the Jenin camp, the city of Jenin, where they say they're trying to target armed Palestinian groups. But the local hospital there say a 73-year-old man was killed as a result of Israeli gunfire this morning. So there has, while we've been seeing a pause in hostilities in Gaza, this increase in violence in the West Bank. There's also, we should point out, real concern from Palestinians in the West Bank, not just about this operation, but about the actions, the increasingly violent actions of settlers there, of Israeli settlers.